Okay, sorry about that. I just got a message saying that the stream had dropped. So I want to make sure that we're live. Plus it's recording. There we go. Cannot find a window. You should be good. Okay. Alright, so we're going to continue. Let's move on to the next object to paint. So I'm going to say File New. Yes, let's save it. Thank you. Okay. So new lamp, we're going to select from our folder here, floor lamp 1. I'm going to select him, say OK, and we're going to open it. All right, brand new object to paint. Here we go. We're going to go a lot faster this time since we know kind of what we're doing. This guy's a little bit different. He's similar to like an air filter. Let me bring up this here. So let's cancel that out. So this is all good. We're done with that. Let's get a look at our next object here. So if I, down here in the corner, this guy here. You'll see what I mean by he looks kind of like an air filter, like an air purifying machine. He's this one here in the corner, okay? So I'll show you the files we have for him. It's already been set up for us, so we can just go, but here's the mask for it. So I've already laid everything out. There's already a unique color for everything. This is all set to go. So I'm just gonna save this as a PNG. So this is a floor lamp now. That last one we did was a desk lamp. This is a floor lamp. So I'm going to call this floor lamp 1 IDs. Say OK. And now we can jump right into painting. So I'm going to create a new folder. And this is going to be for the base metal as usual. There we go. And that means I can delete this guy. There we go. File, save. Under work, floor lamp. Floor lamp 1, save. See, now we can go much faster. So I'm going to import image to project. I'm going to choose the ID map. And what I'm going to do here, this is a little different. I don't actually have a high poly model for this guy, but he's going to be, again, so small on screen and not really that in your face that we're going to do a little trick. And I'm going to choose to bake textures. And I'm going to say no ID, no thickness, 1024. And for the high poly model, I'm just going to choose him again. And this does help us to get a little bit of self-occlusion, and not really much in the way of a normal map, but the self-occluding really helps, especially when the software crashes. Okay, well, we'll reload that, so I'll be back in a second with that. Now, let's try to reopen that. I hope I can do that. If I can't, then that's fine. But I would like to be able to do that. Floor lamp 1, open. Okay, do I have textures? No, I don't. We'll try it one more time. If it doesn't work, then it doesn't like using itself. You know what I could do is, before I attempt that, one thing I think that it might have balked at is because it's literally the same file. So one trick I could try is make a copy of the file and just call it something else. Even though it's the same geometry and everything, I'll just call it HP. And now maybe it will like it a little better. Who knows, we'll see. It might still crash. If it still crashes, I apologize, and we'll just use the normal. There we go. Okay, so maybe that's a quick trick to get past that. That was pretty cool. That worked out well. All right, so let's just get painting. So base metal. Again, I'm going to use a smart material. What do these guys want? Got in the background. We're on top right now. Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Okay. So base metal, again, we're going to use a smart material. And if I look at my concept art, it's kind of a grayish material, and it's very, very matte. It's not very shiny. So we can choose something and maybe lower the shininess. So for example, if I choose this guy, which I was going to use earlier for the other thing. Actually, I don't really like that. Let's not choose that. Let's pick something. I was going to choose the glass. I think that'd be cool as a plastic if you can lower some of the Like if I can up the roughness on it, yeah, see, that's pretty good. We can up the roughness on it and that gets a lot better of a material. Okay, good. But again, the color, I need to get a better color on this. So I move my concept art over, there we go. So I'm gonna choose a better color from off screen. Ooh, that was interesting. So I'm gonna choose a better color, pardon me, from off screen. This is the color that he is. Okay, good, there we go. That looks good to me. So let's call this base, it's more like a base plastic than a metal. So let's call that plastic. Okay, good. So that we have all set. Now there's a couple of decorations and details to it, but I want to get some of the major chunks figured out first. So add a new thing. I'm gonna call this light, even though only part of it is the light. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second here. So I'm gonna choose a similar trick to this, but for this one, let's apply our. No, I'm gonna choose this. Okay. So inner light, just kind of thinking on the fly as to how I'm gonna do this. Add mask with color selection. We're gonna choose our ID, which I thought we imported, but maybe we did that with the other one where it crashed. Yeah, could have been. Okay. Save, just to be sure. Okay, there we go. Choose that guy. I need to choose this area. There we go. So for that inner area there, now I can go into this plastic here and choose the right color for it. It's like a dark color in there. Something like that. So now in there I can keep it, this shiny plastic in there. I might still make it a little bit, I think I'll make it a little bit rougher. Like maybe closer to 2 instead of 0. So it's still shiny, but it's not super shiny in our face, okay? So let's do a save as and just call this the right thing, make sure it's in the right place. I guess it is in the right place, okay. I just wanted to make sure, I'm sorry. Alright, so this guy's not going to really do much, but the other light that we're going to have in here will. So I'm going to add that, and I'm going to call this light, and then in parentheses, light, the actual light emitting surface, okay? So again, what do we do for a light emitting surface? We come over here and we're going to add our emissive channel. There we go. And now for this guy, I'm going to turn off height, roughness, and metal, and just turn on emission. And for this guy, I want the emissive color to be very close. Let me grab it from over here. That color, okay. Yep, and now it's everywhere right now, I know. Just a second. We actually don't even need a color to this area. That's the neat part about it. Now we're going to use our mask again. So I'm going to choose this, and it should calm down once I choose this. There we go. I think the reason it's freaking out is, yeah, this other one, we haven't set anything for this guy. That's why it's freaking out. No emission, please. No emission. I think that's why it's freaking out. Look at that inner part that's going crazy. Base and glowing edges, yeah, see? Because I turned on emission for the whole project, it was suddenly freaking out about that area. Okay, so that's good. Save that. Again, let's bring back our settings. Post effects. Turn those on. Turn on glare. I think we had to set this to bloom. Very low threshold. Very high luminance. Like that. So it generates light strangely out of this area. Maybe we do a different one. Cheap lens, no. Sunny cross. It's just way too shiny for me. And I need it to generate light, but I don't want it to be too overpowered. We'll just have to do a trade-off somewhere in there. Alright, so it's generating light for us. Let's see. Pretending like it's an object in the world. Let's see. I feel like the top part's not really generating any light at all. Okay, well, there's our light. Very strange, very strange. We'll work that out. Plus, this is only a representation here, not a representation of what it will look like once it's in Engine, so that's another thing to keep into account. So I'll turn it a little down for now just so we don't get distracted with the rest of it. Okay, so we'll save that. Now we got a couple different areas for this. Let's look at our Photoshop file. You can see there's this back area. We have two different patterns on the bottom, and there's these stripes here. And then we've got these little notches in it, kind of insets. Let's do those next, because those are a neat little detail. Okay, so inset, and we will choose a base metal to work with. I just need something that I can choose a height map to. So let's pick this. Oh, that should be fine. Add that in there. Yeah. Steel base. Does that have a height? Nope. Okay, well, I can't use you then. Thank you for trying. Alright. Let's just go with what we know. Oh, I'm sorry. I was on Smart Materials still. That might be why. We'll just drop one of those in there. There we go. So we want height, and the height we want to be a negative number. The roughness we want to be very rough, slightly metallic, and I'll choose a color. I'll try and get color from the concept art. There we go. And now on this top layer, again, just as another example, you don't have to always choose the layer. You can choose the folder. I'm going to say add our mask, choose this, pick color, that guy in there. There we go. You can see it appear up here. There they are, and they are indeed inset. So very nice. Moving right along. Oh, why did it do that? That's interesting. Oh, it shows the wrong color. You see that? So what we can do here is I have to zoom in more closely. And now if I go here to the colors, I can always make an adjustment. I'm going to remove that and choose to pick it again and pick more closely. Now, that's much better actually. That's selected it. And you can tell that that it worked or did not work. Okay, let's just frame this. By hovering over this, you can see what the mask is. It's very small, but I can see it there. When I hover over, I can see that the mask is in fact just that little area. All right, so next up, let's do these colored stripes that are on the side. So I'm going to say stripes, and this is pretty simple. What I'm going to do is choose a uniform plastic color. Okay, so it's going to look really weird at first. Again, let's mask out the area. I'm going to preemptively zoom in here a little bit so I can get the right color selected. Choose this, pick a color, pick those colors, there we go. Now for the actual color of the plastic, I can pull that directly from the concept art. So I'm just going to pick in there, there we go. Very good, so there we go. So we got that color chosen. And that's all it is, just color. There we go. Boom, nice and simple. Okay. So next up we have this area down here. So this is two different things. It's one type of material, and then we have this pattern. So we have to work with a pattern for the first time. And then we just have this area back here, and I can show you guys, I'm going to add some special details to it, and we'll do that together. So let's work on the bottom next. Okay. So let's, that's fine. Let's call this folder bottom, and we'll call this base metal, and I'll put that in there. So now what I'm going to choose is, for the base metal, we're going to do a new type of thing that we haven't done yet. So I'm going to choose a black mask, and I'm going to go over here, whoops, and choose this fourth option here. This is the polygon fill. And now you can see that it's showing me a wireframe of my model. But here I can say I want to choose my UVs as my fill option. So now if I just click on the bottom and click here, and I want to click right there. There we go. So I've selected my mask. You see here if I hover over it, it's got the bottom plus the little thing around the edge. And I was able to select by clicking on the model. The reason this is important is because I need to do this as one layer and now as a whole separate layer. And I'm going to make it a crazy color to begin with just so I can make sure I'm choosing the right zone. Now I'm going to choose the masking here. And you'll see what I'm doing here is there's a mask to this which is different from what I have here. So if I choose that guy. So now if you look at the bottom, that's different and that's different. But this stripe around here is different still. And this is going to be our pattern. So I'm going to call this pattern. Okay. So the base metal, we need to start with that. So for this base metal, it's just going to be a standard metal. So I'm just going to pick one of these steels. I think actually a steel brushed wouldn't be too bad for this. So I'm going to pick him. And what I can do here is actually copy this mask. Copy mask. And is there a paste mask? Import mask. Nope. Okay, but I can give him a mask. Say, oh, nope, wrong button, sorry. Black mask. I'm gonna say paste into mask. There we go. So I've pasted the mask into that. So now if I hide this, there we go. I've got that metal. There we go. So we got metal on the bottom there, and now we need to do our pattern over top. So this guy's useless, we can delete him. So now we need our pattern. And the pattern I need to create is this vertical pattern. If I look at it in the Photoshop file here. Let's take a look in the Photoshop file. So the pattern is this vertical kind of, raised section. Almost reminds me of the bottom of like a stick of deodorant, that thing you hold to click, click, click. So we have to create that. So let's see what we can do inside of Painter. And if we need to, we can come back to Photoshop to create something, which we may have to do. That might be where we need to go with this. I have a bunch of procedural stuff here, though, that we can use, and that might be a good option. So let's see what we got. A whole bunch of procedural. I think I know what I need is if I could use these stripes but make them vertical instead of horizontal like this, that would be good. So let's go to our paint here so I can see everything. I'm going to add a paint layer, and in the paint here I can choose a stencil or an alpha shape. So I wonder what happens if I drag the stencil in here. You can see it stencils the whole screen. And now I should be able to move the stencil. Rotate stencil is Control and S and left. So I'm going to rotate stencil like so. Perfect. And now I want the stencil to be scaled out. So if I hold S, show me stencil zoom right. There we go. Let's do something more like that. Very good. I like it. That looks pretty good. I do want to move it just a little bit. So stencil pan is middle mouse. Okay, a little bit this way. Pretty good. Okay, I like it. So now for this paint layer, what I'm going to do is simply say, the color I will care about. The height I definitely care about. So the height, I'm going to choose to up the height. The roughness, want it kind of rough, a little bit of metallic. And the color, I'm going to source from the concept art. There we go. Sourced it. And now I'm going to paint directly in here. So if I up my brush size, and I can just paint. So I'm going to paint. Just painting across the model. Just keep going. There we go. Okay, that should be good. Now, what I can do is remove the stencil. If I find it in here, there we go. Remove the stencil, and I need to clean up the model a bit because I did accidentally paint on things I didn't mean to paint on. this pattern thing is not going to work out for me. There we go. So we'll do that. So now I just need to clean up the rest of the model. And the way I can do that is to go to my eraser tool, I believe. And I should be able to erase just from this layer what I painted on it that I don't want to keep. There we go. I don't want to keep all that. That did not work out as well as I hoped. Okay. Well, we undo and we figure out a better way. So I want to keep just that area. Maybe I can mask it. Bitmap mask. Turn that off. Mask. Learning a little bit here, guys. There we go. We'll choose that. Just that. There we go. So now I've kind of filtered it by just that area. And that's much better looking. Much, much better looking. Okay. So there we go. We kind of combined a couple of effects, and that works out really nicely. Let's go ahead and save that before anything terrible happens. So the steel brushed is sort of our base material for that, and then this painted layer is our painted grooves. That's what I'll call that. Painted grooves. There we go. All right, we're doing well. So that's the whole bottom area. Very nice. Now let's do this back area, and we've got another back area here. This is really plain. We need some details in here. And this is the part that we're going to kind of ad-lib here with you guys that I don't have planned out, but we're gonna wing it together, and it won't be a problem at all. So here I'm going to add a new folder. Let's call this back top, and I'll call this one back bottom. Okay, and my OCD says this has to be then on top of that. So these are going to represent these two different areas here, and these are going to be super easy to work with. So for the back top, let's go ahead and add a black mask, and I'm just going to choose by, I should have a, I'm sorry, let's redo that. I'm going to add a mask with color selection. I should already have that already selected. So this is the back top area, so that's that area. And notice that it's too close in color to the other. So there is a tolerance here. So if I up the tolerance or lower the tolerance perhaps. Nope, let's try upping the tolerance quite a bit. Nope, that made it way worse. So let's put no tolerance whatsoever. And that didn't work at all. Interesting. Pick a color. Okay. It's just not going to like me tonight. So that's okay. We can just remove that mask. Let's just remove that. And we're going to choose black mask. And I will do it this way. Multiple ways to do everything. Not a problem. So I'll just select there. I can even click right in the UVs. And there we go. I've selected it. So just to prove that I've got the right area, what I like to do is just start off with a default. So I'm just going to choose a uniform white, toss it in there, and there we go. That whole area is getting super lit up by the light we got here, but there we go. So that white area, that proves to me that I'm on the right track. And yeah, there you go. That's the zone we're going to work with. Okay, so it's temporary color. Don't worry about that. So let's go down to the back bottom and get that guy selected and get him all set up. So same thing. I should again have a color already set for him, assuming it's not too similar to anything else. There we go. Again, it was too similar to that over there. I'm not sure why it's too similar. I think it's a problem with the... it seems like it's being lit up differently than what I'm expecting. That's okay. We'll work it out. So I'll just say black mask. Come on. Black mask. There we go. UVs. All the way up. And select this guy. There we go. So he's all selected too, and we'll throw a color in there. There we go. He lights up. Good to go. All right. So these areas in general, we're going to apply a general material to, but we do need some Photoshop help. Okay. So in our Photoshop help here, what we're going to be doing is generating some labels and things. So for example, I'm going to create a rounded rectangle, and what I want to do is put a label on this. So I think I was working on this. I'm not sure if I finished it or not. top circle indents, those are those. No, I never did finish it, so that's why we do it together. Alright, so I'm just going to click and drag this guy out, something like this, and move him into position somewhere like there. So what this represents is, on a product, you'll commonly see a label on the back where there's this indent in the plastic, and then they have the name of the company stuff, or what they made, and what model number it is, and all that. So we're going to create one of those here. Actually, a better spot for that would be up here on the back of this thing. So we'll create that there, and what we need to create is some venting, some heat venting on the back of here. So that's what we're going to do here. So let's generate this. I want it to be white to start with, so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to generate something like that. There we go. I'll make a bunch of copies of this. So I'm going to say something like that. And I'm just going to make a group out of this and then duplicate the group. And if I move this down, probably 5 at a time, duplicate the group. And now I can duplicate multiple groups at once. So something like that. That's pretty good. So I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to merge them all together. So it's one object now. And now we can change the scale of it. So I'm going to scale this down quite a bit, something like that. And move this to a kind of centralized location, something like that. Okay? There we go. So now what I'm going to do is hit save for now. I'm going to save as, call this PNG, so that's white, and that's a different color that we haven't used yet, I hope. And I'm going to rename this, or save over this. There we go. So I should be able to come back to my project here, file, save, just to be sure. And now, in each of these areas, I'm going to add these things. So for the top, we have the label. So I'm going to create a new fill layer. I'll call this label. And the label, we want the height to be a slight negative. We do want it to be extremely rough and not at all metallic. Okay? So I'm going to put it in here and put that above the actual material of the background. And now I'm going to re-import my texture. So if I go to textures, you see how they're not present here. If I right click and say reload, it reloads them. And they should take effect here as well if there were any changes to those. So now that that's been re-imported, if I go to the mask with color selection, choose the same file, and now I can choose this label area. And there we go. So there we go, that's pretty good. And I think I'm going to lower this a bit more, like -6. So I can really see the light, so it keeps it down in there. Good. Okay, so that's just a good general area. We'll work on the actual coloring of it in a second. Just like that's not the right color of the backdrop of that thing. And let's do the same kind of thing here. So I'm going to add a fill, and I'm going to call this vents. I'm going to put that inside this, but bring them above the actual material. Again, this is all pretty standard stuff. I am going to make this pretty solid black. Not all the way solid black, but pretty close to it. The height is definitely all the way negative. The roughness is pretty high up there. And not at all metallic. And not at all emissive. Okay, good. That's all set. So now let's add our masking. Mask, choose this. Color. Zoom in on the white. There we go. That looks great. That looks really good. We can see that venting going on, especially here with the light going across it. Very nice. So that just makes sense that if you have this big thing that's spitting out a lot of electricity, you're going to need some way to vent the heat from this thing. So that's what we got going on there. Okay. So good, good, good. All right. Now we need to give some just actual materials for these things. That's all we have to do left. So for this guy, we definitely want something similar to what we started with for the base material, But let's do something a little bit different. Let's switch it up just a bit and choose maybe some painted steel. So this would be a painted material. There we go. And actually that should be more like a hard plastic for the back, but I like the look of that in the way that the light captures it. Let's see, I should be able to change the paint color of this. Yes. So I'm going to pick this from the concept art. There we go. Okay. That's good. And I do think that my vents need to be a bit darker. They're just not black enough. I'll just make them solid black. Yeah, there we go. That looks really good. Oh, I apologize for that. That's the alarm system. My wife must have opened the door. Okay, so the back looks pretty good. For the top, maybe we'll do the same thing for the top here. If we choose the painted steel, which is supposed to be steel, but I think it looks more plasticine. That's fine by me. And again, I will pick the color from the concept art. So let's go down here and choose that. So it's very, very similar in color and tone. There we go. Okay. And what we can do here is we have options here to change. Obviously, the normal format we want to change. The roughness, let's make it a bit more rough. Why is the label I want to be less? I can choose directly from here too and choose a darker color. Yeah. I think the label is set with an emissive. Is that why it's doing that? Why is the label so bright? Maybe it's not as bright as I think it is. Okay. So we can add some stuff to the label here, and what I think I'm going to do is I might just need to make it even darker. Something like that. We can come back and add, actual text in here. Although, again, this thing's going to be this big on the screen, so we don't really want to add too much that you're not going to be able to physically read. What's the point? But add some buttons and switches to the top would be nice. I think that's a good thing. Stop doing that, please. So what I'm going to do is add a button to the very top. So this is technically part of the top back. So we're just going to do that up here. So I'm going to add a paint layer. I'm going to call this button. Now if I go to my alphas here, I can pick an alpha. If I have a whole bunch, I might be able to import one. Ooh, let's see if we can do that. Import image in the project. I just picked up a whole bunch of really good resources online for I paid for them, but for my alphas here, all kinds of great alphas. So let's go for what about miscellaneous? Some pretty good ones there. I like that a lot. Okay, let's import that. So now with my button here, if I choose the alpha for that, I'm going to choose right here. It should be in my list of imported objects. There it is. Excellent. And you can see it. You should be able to see it here when I click. Maybe not. Maybe not yet. Okay. Flow, jitter, alpha, stencil. No material. That's why it's having trouble. Give me a material to work with here. Give me my material. Okay. I can line that up. Don't want it to be too big. Should be a relatively small button. Okay, what happens if I... Nope. It's giving me trouble here all of a sudden. Let's try fill. Maybe that'll help us. Emission, no emission, please. Base color. No, I definitely want this to be a paint layer. interesting. All of a sudden I can't paint. Oh, I need to be on brush mode, is that it? Please let me paint. There we go. Now I can paint again. Okay, that's good. Alpha. There we are. Okay. Paint. I can click and add a button. Now the problem with this is I think it's doing a downward. No, it was doing an upward. It looked very downward shaped. There we go. That's better. I like that a lot. And that gives me a good sort of indent. So if I click, probably want a little bit more. If I click, there we go. That's really good. And now I just add one more paint layer on top of that, and I take away the stencil, and I say change nothing except the color. And I can choose color, maybe like it look like the button like it's on. And oh, that alpha is incredibly harsh. There we go. Something more like this. And maybe this will be better to do in 3D than it is in 2D. There we go. So we made a button to make it look like it's on. You know, like that's what you press to turn it on or off. Okay. I'm liking it. So let's go ahead and save, and we'll add some dirt, okay? So all of that is good. We're all set there. And let's add our dirt to the top and start dirtying it up. So same process, I'm just gonna kind of fly through it. Not Z ground, sorry. Z ground dirt, doctor. Oh wow, I must be tired, okay. Oh, okay, materials, uniform black, there we go. And let's do our black mask, add our generator on ground dirt, there we go. You can see right away it's doing a nice job. It's a little, come on, there. It's a little much right off the bat, so let's do a little bit of that. And dirt height, I don't want it quite that high up, maybe closer to that. There we go. And dirt level, a little bit more. There we go, so it's got the dirtness. But the top's not dirty yet, so let's add some of that. Fill Unidirt for universal dirt. Yeah, absolutely. Must be one of the fellow int guys in the chat. Sorry, I just noticed there. Excited for the assets we're building. It's always good to know. People are excited to see them. So let's add generator universal dirt. Dirty up a bit, and grunge amount. Yeah, let's up that a little bit. So from above, we can really see that there's been some serious wear and tear on this image. One more thing I'm going to do actually, because I like to do this, I'm going to add a painted dirt layer. So painted dirt, and again, I'm going to choose. This is my brush, but see, I have to physically paint this. So what I'm going to choose in here is something like one of these is good. And I'm going to zoom in around the area where the exhaust is here, because it would cause causes it'll make it dirtier around the shape here as it comes off, and causes more dirt into the atmosphere as the heat rises from the thing. So just going to kind of paint some strokes of that to make it pretty dark in there. Let's see what we can do here. I want to make sure that this is getting the point across. Let's make it very rough. Zero metallic. Basically pitch black. And let's come off of there. There we go. So something like this. I'll lower the amount and kind of just make sure I basically cover the whole thing and start to streak it off into the... And you can see here, it gets to be too much pretty quickly. But what I can do here is, again, a little bit more. And I can even paint directly on the model too, which is what I really like. What I really like about this software. Paint directly on the model, do all of this. Get it real overblown. And then I can lower the opacity here and kind of blend it in with the rest of the texture. So blend it in there a bit. And then you can go over to the eraser tool and I'll turn off the stencil for this. Turn off the stencil. Change my alpha to basically nothing. And whoa, okay, maybe not. Choose this. There we go. Now I should be able to erase backwards a little bit. Like that's a little high for all of that. Get a little bit off the sides. There we go. Perfect. So I like it. Looks good. And we made sure that the dirt goes over top of the paint layers, so that's important. The light is still shining, it's still operating, but that's okay. And let's move all of these into the dirt folder. There we go. So dirt on top of everything else. So to frame it all up, we got some dirty lights. That back looks especially good. The bottom, no one's going to see, but there is paint on it, just in case. And we have our button on top, which looks really good, because we're probably going to see this mostly in this sort of a fashion. So that's why I thought that top would be really nice. Okay, let's save. Now let's see if we can do one more. Maybe we'll do some modeling of an object instead of just pure painting. I'll show you how we do that process as well. So let's go ahead and save all of this, and we'll switch gears a little bit. So here was this asset all done. I'm using the wrong keys. When you switch softwares back and forth, sometimes it takes a moment to kind of figure out what your keystrokes are. Alright, so let's unhide all. You can see as I was working, this was another lamp that we were going to paint tonight, but I think we're just going to do one more. We're going to do some modeling and kind of switch it up a little bit. Okay. So let's pick these guys and move them over. And we can delete this guy. And we're going to take this asset and we're going to bring him up to modern day standards. Probably just get the modeling done on this one for tonight. And then we'll paint next time. But we did get a lot of painting done tonight. We got 2 lamps painted, which is really good. We needed those for the game. And you can see this is a third one here that we'll be painting next time. I believe this is the one for him, or maybe not. I'll find it for you real quick just so you can see what he looks like, because right now he looks ridiculous. Well, still looks ridiculous with solid colors on him, but there we go. Okay, so this is, you can tell this is a similar idea, multiple solid colors that we can use to pick from, and all of the lights share the same UV space. So for our concept art here, if I bring this up, let's see here. He's this guy right here. So I've selected all the areas for him, so we would do a similar process to him. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to work on rebuilding this asset to bring him up to the modern standards that we have. Okay? So I'm going to find him on my texture, on my sheet over here, so I can see it off screen. There we go. Okay, so we're going to work on him for now. So let's hide all. There we go. So here he is. And right away, a couple of things I looked at to tweak and change. There's no actual bar that goes through here to actually hold the thing in place. We've got some unnecessary geometry going back and forth, and none of this is really necessary to be a part of the low poly model. Now, not that it was a bad job by any means. You know, if you look at it from above, it follows the core shape of it, and it's a decent job. It's just we can make it a little better, and if we're going to rebuild it in order to paint it better, then we might as well. Okay, so a couple of things also in the concept art. A little bit of a lag spike. I apologize. There we go. Okay. These feet are actually less curved. This is a much more extreme curve in the original concept art, so we'll see if we can correct that a little bit. If I'll leave that up so I can see where the floor is actually at. The only way to really fix that would be to sort of rebuild the feet, which we could do. If I create a box, and I'm just going to make it really long to start with, pretty thin, and I don't know how thick yet. But I'm just going to move this to be about here. Maybe a bit longer. Let's see, a bit longer, something like that. Just kind of guesstimating at the moment. Let's move this into position. Pretty good. Let's add a bunch of segments to the width, it looks like. Yeah, multiple width segments. And we got a whole bunch, and then we can always lower it later. And now what I'm going to try and do is match the curve more so than the actual distance. So I might even have to increase this even further, which means additional segments. I want it to be even. Something like that. There we go. So now I'll just add a bend modifier and need to find my right angle. So that's not it, obviously. Whoops. Come here. Bend on the x-axis. No. Oh, yes. Yes, actually. Oh. Bend on 90 degrees. So now the bend amount, that's what I'm looking at here. And it looks like the bend amount is similar to this. Similar to this. If I go all the way here, that seems like it's a little much, but that could work. Okay. So now, keeping with my hierarchy to this, I can go back to my original box, and if I turn on the show end result, as I move the width back and forth, I can find the right size. So obviously right here is where it touches the floor. I kind of want it somewhere in the middle, somewhere like this, which means now if I go back to the bend, this is probably where we got this number from. I have to bend it more to let it hit the floor there. But this angle is still a lot more relaxed and a lot more natural than this handmade angle that we had before. So we'll go ahead and use that. That'll be fine. So I'm going to add an edit poly modifier to the top of that so I can make changes without destroying my bottom structure. And now I'm going to step through it and say one there, one there, one there. I'm double clicking here to select the edge loops, that edge loop, and we'll take the one on the end. And I'm going to control and say remove. I think it's control. It is control. Okay, so now I have fewer edge loops that go all the way to the edge. And I'm going to choose my polygons and delete the other half. And now add a symmetry. And by flipping and choosing almost absolutely none, now I've completely generated this, and now I can go all the way from the beginning and make the changes anytime I wish, and I have a much better setup here. I'm going to go down to my edit poly and actually correct the, and continue this line just a little bit and kind of manually tweak it. Make it totally flat. There we go. A little bit of a hand tweak there, but that makes it totally flat. And that'll help us later with the high poly version of this object. Okay, that's good. And let's move it over slightly. And go back to edit poly, select all. I'm going to scale it this way and scale it in so it matches closer. There we go. Okay, so that's the foot, and we're going to be combining that later, and we'll be mirroring everything over a central axis. So that's pretty good. Let's go from here, unselect that. Up here, let's do a save. Add an edit poly, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this central axis here, and I'm going to chamfer it. But what I'm going to do is say 2, so that when I chamfer, I keep that center line no matter what I do. So we're going to come in here. Looks like 1.784, somewhere there. So let's go a little over. There we go. So now if did I hit S by accident? I did. Now if I select these two, I can start to generate this again. So we look at it, it's a bit more curved in the middle here. We can add a few more iterations. It goes up and it does come to a cylindrical part. So I'm going to say extrude by a bunch. I'm just going to go actually all the way to the top. This actually needs to go a little higher in order to account for the cylinder. So there we go. That's good. And we're going to work with 2 iterations for now, and eventually we're going to end up having just the one, but we want to collapse that later once we know where our changes are going to be. Okay, this also looks a little high. Let me see. Actually moves right about here. And another one. Comes up to about here. And now what I'm going to do is select all of these vertices and move them over. Something like that. There we go. So now I have this loop in the middle to work with. So I can say connect and go to my vertices. Then I'm going to rotate them a little bit like so. Drag them in a bit. And that'll probably be good enough. What we're probably going to do here is... Actually, no. I'm going to chamfer it again. Again, 2. Is 2 necessary? 2 is probably not necessary. Choose that, select these, move them up, and this will help to curve out the shape a bit more. Trying to sort of visualize it before I commit to it. Okay, that's pretty good there. So that'll give us all of that. And then we'll add our cylinder on top, and then we need to rebuild this in the center here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our original object. And what I'm going to do is, before I make huge, massive changes, I'm going to make a duplicate of it. And now I can make huge, massive changes to this one without issue. So I'm going to delete the legs of this thing as we rebuild them with the lower part, so that way we know what we're doing here. Okay, so I'm going to call this original model, and we'll hide that entirely. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And again, our super smooth version in the end will be a lot better. Let's select all of these, and I'm going to go to soft selection. Turn that on. Fall off about that. And what I'm going to do is move this out a bit more. More. I'm going to over exaggerate it for our case in point kind of thing here. Nope. Okay. Turn off soft selection. And I'm going to manually adjust. I like that a lot better. That shape is a lot more to what we're looking at in the concept art there. Okay. Now we can get rid of this center seam that we don't need. And here we'll see as this disappears, this gets flattened out again, which is nice. And it's all one contiguous shape now. Okay, so let's save. And we're going to add a symmetry. And what I'm going to do is actually look at this object for a second and pull up its thing, which is zeroed, which is perfect. That's what I wanted. So now if I choose this mirror and say on the YZ axis, I meant mirror, I'm going to zero the mirror. And now it's directly centered, which is perfect. Okay, we're doing well. We can actually tell, I can tell already by rotating around, that this is not centered. Even though the axis is centered, the actual model is not. You see there? It's not centered. So I'm going to select everything that's left. I'm going to move it until it's almost centered. Manually tweak it. I really wish there was a way to say I want to move this model so that like this vertex was centered without losing everything else on here. And there is a way to do that, but it's very time consuming. So I'm going to eyeball it. There we go. Okay, so now it's centered. Now it looks better. I could tell there was a difference in the sizes there. Now that that's centered, we have an edge here that I'm going to leave a cut in the low poly model to remind myself later when we come to do the high poly version. So one thing I'm going to do is come here, edit poly. I'm going to select all of these, and I want to make this thinner. So probably about like so. And it's okay in the center here because this gets actually I'm going to unselect those so I can keep that bottom part really flat. And we'll make that thinner. Something like that. Now let's select all 4 of these. And We'll scale these out a bit just to kind of keep that a little flatter on the bottom. We'll see, that'll help us later on. Okay, save. Always be saving. Now for this cut that I talked about. So we're going to do this and say connect and move him up, and he goes right about there. Vertices, move you up and move you down. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for now. We're not going to use that in the low poly. I'm going to come back and I'm going to remove it. But when we create the high poly from this, we're going to need this to create this little edge cut that's in there. You can see it in the concept art here. There we go. That little edge cut there. So that's what I've just left for ourselves to use. So, excellent. So these feet kind of thing is what I'm going to call this. This is pretty much done. We just need to add our cylinders. Let's do that, and then we can be done with this half of it. So I'll come here, zoom in. I want a cylinder that's just a little bit bigger, something like that, all the way in. The sides, I'm going to only do 8 on this guy. It doesn't really need to be anything huge. It's just for our purposes here to connect everything together. There we go. All right, move them over. Okay, obviously I forgot the, there we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is move this guy to a little bit off of here, and I'm going to rotate him 180 degrees. And now I can play with his height and say move the height until you're buried into the thing. There we go. See, there he is inside. Perfect. I'm going to collapse it, and I'm going to reset the X form, because we may come into a problem with UVs later on if we don't reset the X form, because it was flipped on the axis there. It was rotated 180 degrees. Okay? But now I can take this, come back down to here, and say attach this, and now I get one on either side. Very, very nice. Okay. So we're going to rebuild this guy. Of course, we're going to choose a cylinder. And let's go to here and choose cylinder. And we'll make them about that large. That. Make sure he's zeroed. This guy is going to be, well, let's say we can get away with 12. Let's see, 6 and 6 and 4. Yeah, okay. 12 should be good. Yes, I understand. Thank you. Okay. And again, we're going to do the same thing. I'll move him down to the end here. Let's make sure he's at the very end, something like so. And I'm going to rotate him 180 degrees, and I'm going to bring him all the way to this point. Let's go height. All the way to the end. Okay. And let's mess with that just a little bit. Whoa. Okay, that's good for now. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is add an edit poly. There we go. I'm going to call this light main. I'm going to do a couple of little things. I like to throw in a black outline color and give it a base material so that whenever I click off of it, I can see all the edges very well. And let's do the reset. Reset selected. Add an edit poly back on. Whoa. Add an edit poly back on top of that. That way we can go back and make changes to the base cylinder if we decide we need more sides eventually, which we actually might. Let's save it, go back and check. So if I up the sides to say 16, that gives me this one extra edge along here, which on either side would be pretty good. And I can jump up here and just continue editing. Perfect. All right. Now, one thing I want to do is I want a proper pivot for this so that we can potentially animate it if we felt like it. Okay. So we're going to come back down here and I'm going to choose polygon face. I'm going to choose insert by just a little bit. And I'm going to collapse these vertices into the center by welding them together. So if I weld together, boom, right? Now, if I select this guy, the Z-axis is what I'm interested in. I'm going to copy that. Okay, let's see, this doesn't make sense at first. But now I'm going to come back to my light main, and I'm going to choose Affect Pivot Only, and move his pivot to there. Now, come back here, again, choose this vertex here, and now what I'm interested in is the, let's see, not the Y, but X of 0, Y of, no, I don't, maybe I do want the Y, but the X is 0, the Y, I had it all mapped out in my head, because he's way back here still. So I Affect Pivot Only, and I want to bring it forward. Maybe I do want the, oh, it was down there. Duh, okay, 0. There we go. So now, the reason behind that is I have my light here, and if I need to make a different version of the light being rotated, it now rotates properly around that center part. So, perfect. There we go. And the reason we do that there is because now, again, I can still go all the way back down to my cylinder and make changes if I want to. Okay. All right, if you would excuse me for just a moment, I'm going to get a quick drink, and we will continue in just a second. All right, we are back. Appreciate your patience. Just needed a quick drink, talking a lot. If you guys have any questions, of course, you're free to ask. I'm happy to help. All right, so let's get back to our asset here. I'm going to also select this guy and do the same thing here with giving him the black coloring and assign a standard material to him so we can see our asset a bit better. Now, let me move you down here a little bit. There we go. So let's look at what we have left to build. If I bring this guy over, whoopsies. Bring this guy over a little bit. We can kind of follow along in the side view there. Basically, he's two shapes. He's this sort of outer covering and then an interior shape here. And following the concept art over on the side there, we also have the light bulb. Oh, lag spike, sorry. We also have the light bulb to contend with as well. So I'm gonna make two copies of this. I'm gonna make a duplicate, and I'll call this light main cover. And so that will be this top part, and then we'll have the actual interior part, light main. There we go. So light main cover. So light main cover. I'm going to go into a side view for this guy right here, and we can see our old object underneath, so we can make an appropriate cut of him. So he needs to be cut right there, and that is not very visible. Let's see. If I select this here, I can. Okay, that's what I thought. Sort of jagged, so a little hard to see. Okay, that's fine. So select all of our polygons here, and we're going to go into our quick mask, or slice plane mode rather, and I'm going to move it around. I can't really see the thing behind it that I was trying to follow, so we will just do a slice and go right back to using our vertices. Okay. So since the original one here was a little jagged, that actually came out pretty nice. We're going to just use that. I just sort of guesstimated where it needs to be. All right, so we need to get rid of a couple of things. Let's get rid of the two end caps for now, and we'll get rid of everything below the parallel line there. So all we have is the top part, and then of course now we can get rid of that, and now we're left with just what we need. So if I select this, first instinct, of course, is to extrude outwards. We need a little bit of an overlap here, so we can do that. Let's extrude by local normals. Let's give ourselves, we can over-exaggerate it a little bit. Say 0.15. There we go. And we do have a nice little bit of a lip on it. So if I solidify that, let's see what I'm talking about here with this little inset there. Let me see if I can try and find out how far that goes. Oh, right to that line. Okay, so we should be able to select this from here. Yep, cover. So I'm going to move these points back to here, and then select this, and I'm going to unselect the back and extrude those out. So we'll extrude those out to here. Actually, what I want to do is I'm going to extrude these quite far. We're going to do something fancy. And we're going to do another slice plane. We'll move it over here. This time we'll rotate it about 90 degrees the other way. Slice that up. Cut that off. And bring these points inward. And we'll just do that. Make it a little fancier. There we go. I like it. All right. Now, this is the object that actually has the these ridges in it that are actually more like circles from the top. So we're going to do one piece at a time here, and we'll recombine it in the end is essentially how it works. So take this guy here, and first things first, I'm going to move his pivot because it's not in the correct place. Effect pivot only. And actually, no. His pivot is in the correct place because it has to attach to the main light eventually. So, good. Alright, I almost forgot about that. Alright, so let's remove this. We don't need that. Actually, oh, we do need that because of that. I see what happened there. Cool, that's terrible. Alright, so we'll bring this down. I'll bring this down here. I'm making a duplicated selection of those faces, and we'll snap them to here. There we go. Okay, so now if I snap and choose one at a time. I could actually do two at a time because they're mirrored counterparts. So we'll do you to you and you. Oh, hello. Did I choose the wrong thing? I did. All right, you to you, there you go. You to you. There we go. And you and you. And you to you. There you go. Select all. Weld. And perfect. Okay. Now we can get rid of this. Remove. There we go. And we just have to build this back up, which is no big deal at all. A nice trick here is you can skip one at a time. So since these are all quads that I'm creating, so if I bridge every other one, so you'll see in a second here, so I bridge, 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 bridge. So I've skipped these 4. Now I can go to 3, which is my my loop open edge border. That's what they call it. Sorry, border. And if I click there and say cap, it's the same thing as doing the bridging we just did. Just a little faster to do the 2 because that you can select all of them at once and just say click, do it. All right, so all that's good to go. I'm going to select all of this and let's get rid of our smoothing for now. Clear all smoothing. There we go. All right. So he's all good to go, and essentially, as far as low poly goes, he's complete. So now we need to work on generating the high poly for this guy. And we could do some of this in Paint, some of this in Painter, and some of it in modeling. I think some of the details I see here we're probably going to do in Paint because they're pretty simple to do. So let's just go ahead and unwrap this guy. So text tools, unwrapping. I'll bring it up over here so you guys can see. There we go. So first of all, I'm just going to select only the top, just the top, and say flatten mapping. You're good to go. Let's it's my cat making noise. There we go. Okay, I need to relax that. And I'm going to have to rotate this guy a little bit. The rotate tool is a little messed up because it's following the pivot of the object, so that's okay. What I can do is select an edge, so the center edge, and say align, and it will snap to 90 degrees based upon that line. So that's definitely what I want. And what I like to do is determine where the front of it is. So I can tell the front is this way because here's the center line. So if I go to the front of it and find this vertex, that tells me this is the front. So I'll put it towards the top. And then I want this to be the left of the object. So if I click here, yep, it's following along the left side. So that when I have this on the texture sheet, I know that if I were to put a logo right here, that if you're looking at the light from above, the logo is going to be just like that. So that's why this is important. Now the interior here is going to be a little bit smaller because we have less surface area, but that's okay. It's just something I've learned through practice. So we'll select that, and I'm just going to rotate it enough to get it almost vertical, and then select the center line there and say align. And I know that's the same. Whoops, move, not rotate. See, it's a little smaller because there's less surface area. This distance is less than this distance. Okay. Now the remainder of it should be one solid piece. It's not that hard to do. There we go. You could always have it be 2 separate pieces, and like the outer shell could technically have this with a few cuts in it. We'll see how this unfolds. If it's not going to unfold nicely, we might need to do that. Let's see what the quick one does. I think it did a decent job. It's just an edge piece. It's not going to be highly visible, so we can get away with doing this instead of having to have a whole bunch of extra seams to everything. One continuous seam is better than multiple cuts. Okay, so select him. I wanted to select you, please. and we'll move him over here. Okay, so this guy's all set and ready to be recombined with the rest of the model in a short bit here. So let's end isolate on him. He's done. Now we need to do the interior. And the interior is this part, and then we're going to add the bulb as well. Alright, so let's go back to our main object here, and obviously we don't need all the way to this point, we just need what's not covered by the overall light. So let's move this back, and probably about there is good. Let's double check that with the reference right there. Just trying to somewhat follow it. It doesn't have to be exact. Alright, now this has a very interesting detail that we're going to have to be aware of that's on the bottom. This might have an inverse seam where we put a seam along the top. And I'm thinking of a clever way to kind of disguise that seam and keep the overall shape of the model looking pretty good. Alright, so we're going to do a similar trick here where I'm going to take this and extend it. Extend it quite a bit because I do want to do the cut trick. So let's do the cut trick again based upon the look and feel that I've got going on here. So let's do that. Rotate, and I want it to be less so, more like that. So we'll slice that. Okay, let's delete that. Okay, so I'll select all these vertices and move this back until it's like so. Looking good. We can add a little bit of variety to it if we want, like they did on the end here. It's not totally necessary, but we can take care of that. So we'll inset that a little bit. Give ourselves a little bit of a piece here, and just a little bit of decoration. How's that? Nothing too crazy, but just something to kind of have something on the end there. It's always good. And we have a little bit of room in the budget for some flash. Let's do that. Okay. And we can move it back a little bit. There we go. Okay. Oh, it's freaking out. Freaking out. That looks good. Okay. Now, for the UVs, for the UV's sake, I like to add some cuts that will allow me to help to organize everything. So I'm going to put one right about here. Actually, if I follow my guide in the background, it should be there. So that will follow this detail that's going to be painted into the bottom here, which means we're going to have a center seam up top along this thing here. So something I like to do is I'll just select these four faces here, and I'm going to make a duplicate of them. So I'm going to say detach as clone. Okay. Select this thing, and let's take these points that are way down here and move them forward to about there. Now we can make an additional detail out of these. So if I select all of this and say extrude, local normal, actually no, group would be better for this instance, but please come down. So something just like this, we're just making an extra panel that goes on top of this. And this will help us to put like a logo or some buttons or something on top, like how you actually operate the light. And it's going to help us by covering the seam for the bottom detail thing that we're going to need. So that's a good win-win there. Alright, so let's package up this back here and move on to our high poly work. So inset, okay. Move to our vertices, weld everything up. There we go. So for the low poly, that's all well and good. Now for this guy in here, we have this slight angled look to it. We need room for the bulb, so let's do a one of these guys and a cap, and select that, and we're going to insert just a little bit. There we go. And that's good. So now I'm going to extrude by local normal backwards a little bit. Just a little bit, not a whole lot. And then from here, I'm going to make a duplicate. Detach, clone. Okay. So I'm going to continue to work on this and finish this off. So if I inset a little bit and then weld it up. But what I'm going to do differently with the cloned piece is that's what's going to become the bulb. So if I select this cloned piece, let's call this new bulb. Bulb. There we go. Okay, so we have the new bulb. Select that and extrude it out. But see, it's sagging. So I'm going to have to choose a different method entirely. Alright, time for neat trick time. So what I'm going to do is extrude, and I'm going to go backwards. Okay, and then I'm going to select all these edges. And in the side viewport here, I'm going to hold Shift and drag them out just really far. Okay. Now I'm going to select polygon, select all of these, choose slice plane, rotate by exactly 90 degrees, so I need my snapping on. There we go. Move this close to the end, slice. Polygons, select these. Polygons, select the backwardsness that I did at the beginning here. Delete those. And now what I have is a straight tube which has an end cap here that is not straight. And now if I look at this carefully, I may need to flip the normals on this. I go to clay. Yeah, it's inside out. So that's what I figured. Let's turn off clay. Turn off clay. Shaded edge faces. Okay. Select all the normals, or all the polygons rather, and I'm going to say flip. There we go. Now we're all good. And you can tell you're all good because if I look at it like this, where I can see the opening, and I render, I should see these faces, but not these faces. So if I render, there we go. I don't see the interior faces. Okay. So now if I end isolate, see, now it's way too long. It looks more like a cannon at the moment. But if I bring this back and say, where does the bulb end in my concept art? It ends right about here. Okay. So now I can work on a bulb shape for this. What I'm going to do is grab a sphere, come to the front here, and drag it out. Move it to the end. Something like this. I want it to actually, the end of the bulb to be about here. So I need to do a couple of things. Let's just grab both of these objects and collapse them for a second. First, I need to make sure that this sphere has approximately the same radius, diameter of this cylinder I'm working on. Excuse me. So if I align this to this and say, okay, is that going to give me what I'm looking for? No, it is not. Okay, so I'm going to have to eyeball it still. But first things first, let's lower the sides on this thing. Lower this down to 12 segments. Now we need 16, I think is what we're working with here. Yeah, 16. Now you can see how this is going to fit at the end here. We just have to find the right radius to it. So if I go to my snapping, I'm going to snap it to the top. There we go. It's too big, so we'll make it a little bit smaller. Come on. It's a little bit of a back and forth here, but we need to make sure it fits pretty close to seamlessly. That's pretty close to seamlessly. So now that's more like a bulb. Light bulb shape at the end there. So that'll work. Move that forward. Edit poly. We will delete half of it so that it can sit on the end cap there nicely. Move it into position. I'm going to snap it to here. And by selecting this guy, I'm going to say attach this guy. Select all vertices. God, cat. Scared me. And then I'm gonna weld the vertices up. There we go. So now he's all welded. And I can prove that by selecting everything and saying clear auto smooth. I shouldn't see any seam. Nope, no seam. Light bulb complete and isolate. There we go. So now the light bulb in there, it looks good. There we go. All right, so we're almost there. I think the principal modeling is complete. So now we can work on high poly, low poly, unwraps, and all that good stuff. Okay, so we don't need this anymore. I'll hide that just to get it out of our face. Now we need to unwrap this and unwrap this. So let's start here. We can now collapse this. Again, I'm going to leave this here and come back to remove it. So this is all set. Maybe I will still unwrap one and then symmetry it. So we don't need this because we're never going to see that. But the rest of this is good. All that's all set. That's all flat. Okay. So now we can unwrap this guy. So I'm going to say save. And let's call this foot. Just to give it a name. And just because I'm nervous, I'm going to make a copy of it and move it out there in the void. So if I screw it up, it's not a big deal. Alright, so right here, I'm going to go to unwrap. Let me get this situated again. I have it set to go to the other screen for my 3-monitor setup, but for live streams, obviously, you guys want to see it too. Okay, so let's just start with the simple parts. I'll choose this guy and flatten him out. That's no problem. Oh, okay. Relax, relax. There we go. Nothing special about that. And now the rest of him. And obviously we want to choose the bottom for our seam where we're never going to see it. So let's do that. I like to expand it and then rotate it, and I watch for the seam line to come around. So there you can see it move. Now it's on the bottom. Now it's only on the bottom. So now when I unwrap it and then flatten it, you can see the seam line there is underneath, which means when we look at the model from above here, you won't see a seam at all, which is mostly what we'll be doing, so that's perfect. Okay, so you can go with you, but it is upside down. Let's make sure we get that right. So that's that face. That's, nope, it's backwards. That's that face, that's that face, that's that face. Okay, good. Now that's all set. Okay, so this is pretty simple. Do this in stages. To the front. Get you going there. Okay. To the back. And just like last time, we're going to try and straighten these out. So if I select these and start to rotate them, and then I'm going to select this bottom edge and say align. Bottom edge and say align. There we go. Okay, so I select you, move you over there. There we go. Now let's select all the way down, and you notice this guy is connected to here. It's all one thing. It's all connected. So I guess that's the best way we're gonna see to do that. Fewest seams possible, but sometimes for the sake of unwieldy UVs, we need to make some adjustments. But we'll try this out for now. Yep, that's what I was afraid of. He's gonna get all weird, so we need to undo that. Let's break that off. It's too strange of a shape. The automatic unwrap has some trouble with it, so we need to do them in different pieces. It's not going to be too big of a deal to have a little bit of a seam at the bottom there. So let's relax this. You can see it doesn't know what to do with this curved shape. You got to give it quite a bit of relaxing. Oh jeez. just as a way to say run this operation 100 times rather than having to click so much. But okay, that'll be good for now. And flatten. And what I'm going to do here is just move this over to a spot like that. And this way we can select this and break it off. There we go. Now theoretically, I should take this one here and just get him pretty solid. I'll try and shield you from this clicking for a second. Okay, that's good enough. Theoretically, I should be able to take this and copy and paste those UVs to this part here. Now, occasionally this messes up and causes a huge amount of distortion in the UVs. So we're about to find out if that's the truth or not. So one way to tell is to add a UV check and then try it and see if it distorts it. It'll make it this weird, funky kind of stretched in various ways. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So 25 by 25. Hey, stop doing that. Display. Okay, so now if you see areas that the UVs are fine, it's like that. And see, this is like this. And this one's like this so far. Now if I do edit, paste, yeah, see they got all twisted and nasty. So I can't do that, unfortunately. So I just have to, you know, click relax a whole bunch of times to get these things to be the right shape, to get them to be even, which really sucks because they should be able to be just one selected, the other selected, and then say, here, make these equal. But that's okay. If we look up here, see they're going the correct way, and they're going the correct way in the center there. So all of that is good to go. And we just have the tops and bottoms to deal with. So I'm going to do all the tops and bottoms together, by which I mean this, you'll see in a second. Even though they're separated, I'm going to treat them like they're one continuous piece. So if I bring this over here, come on. There we go. Okay, so relax, relax. Relax, relax. Okay, so that's the top one. You see, A1, that's all looking good. And I need to do the bottom in a similar way. So I need the bottom to be looking at me. Now the bottom is a little easier because it is one continuous piece. The top is interrupted by that top bar thing, so it's a little more difficult. All right, relax. And is that what I want? Nope. Upside down. There we go. And again, we can select one edge and do an align to make sure that it's fully aligned. There we go. All right. Not bad. What do we have left? Oh, the bottom two little feet things. Yeah. So just these two little feet. So I'll just select those, and what I typically do with those is I will add them to the add them to the bottom of something, you know. Not really gonna worry about that. Right now it's freaking out anyway. Is an extra face somewhere? Oh, the very top of that inside there, which we don't actually need. So that face we will delete. So don't worry about that. Okay, where is this face? Here we go. Oh, why it's freaking out? Wouldn't let me do both at the same time. It's being finicky. All right, there we go. Relax, relax. So for these, I'll just usually add them to the bottom of something. So for example, this is just the top one is fine. We'll add it to the top one. So this edge is right here. So I click this and say stitch selected. It'll bring up that edge. Right now it looks weird, but you'll see in a second it'll be fine. And I'll zoom in here and select this edge. And I'll do the same thing. Select here, stay selected. And again, it'll look weird at first. But if I select these and then say relax, it will rejoin the normal flow. There we go. Okay, so I'm not going to bother with this face over here because that's going to be deleted. But the rest of this, ooh, okay. I don't think it'll like that. So now if we go, oh, okay, we're just going to delete the symmetry for right now. I know some problems we're about to have if I try that. So I'm going to collapse all, save, go to faces mode, and I'm going to select that face in there and delete it. Okay, so save, and now I'm going to launch UV Editor again, and it feels like a little bit of back and forth, but there's some tweaks with the program. I know that it'll cause a crash if I don't. So now you see that face is gone, that we don't care about. I'm going to select everything and hit this normalize button, and what this does is it scales all the shells to make them equally sized based upon their real physical size. So if you look now, it's all exactly even across the whole surface. Nothing is bigger than it should be. And that's the goal here. So now I'm going to select by object and just start sorting and organizing. So I'm going to move this up here, move this up here, move these guys together down here. Come on. Just kind of stack them. This is the bottom, this is that one, this is the top. And then these two are the interior and exterior edges of that thing. Okay. And this is just one half of it. We're going to mirror it, but first we're going to get it all set up first. And I think what we ultimately should do is actually have unique space for it so that things like the dirt and other such details won't be so easily visible that we've mirrored them, but I think it'll be okay. Alright, let me just get rid of some stuff here. Okay, excellent. Alright, we're going to go a little bit further, guys. Let's get this done. So we'll collapse all of that. There we go. And that's pretty good. So that part's done. Let's unhide. Just unhide all. Sure. Okay. We'll just rehide some stuff. That's our backup there. We don't need any of that. Hide selection. Okay. So that part's done. Let's go ahead and just continue to unwrap things. This guy's already been unwrapped. This guy still needs to be unwrapped. And this guy needs to be unwrapped as well. So we're going to select this one. And we'll just attach all these things together. And then have the bulb be, the bulb will go with it. Alright, let's just do it all at once. How about that? Looks like a lightsaber right now, which is pretty cool. Okay, unwrapping. So this is a necessary evil. Unwrapping it's part of the process that allows us to have proper paint layout, like this kind of stuff. So part of this is already done because we attached an object that already had UVs set for it. We'll handle this guy pretty quickly. This won't be a problem. I'll just do one increase, flatten mapping, bring him over here, relax that out, and let's cut the edges. So I'm selecting these edges because right now, let's see here, the paint will be distorted here. But if I select these edges and say break, meaning split the vertices that are combined there, and now relax it. Now you see how that's much more straight on all of them, so that's really good. Okay, so we'll rotate this mostly into place. And we'll sort by that now. Choose a vertex from the top. Yep, that's good. Top and bottom, perfect. Okay, he's all set. So now I can properly put things on there like buttons and all kinds of things. So he's done. And we can see it happen if we apply the material while we work. You can see he's all good. He's all good, but this one is stretched. It hasn't been touched. This is really bad. Hasn't been touched. So if we select this back here, we're going to want to increase, and that'll all be 1, and then we'll separate. So if I do that, relax that, there we go. So now if we look at that, yep, he looks good. Of course it's not the right scale yet, but we will get there. Let's jump around a little bit and do the bulb next. The bulb is all one thing. Now what we're probably going to have to do is the end cap of the bulb is going to be a separate unwrap versus the more shaft of the bulb, if you will. But we'll try all as one piece at first. And what I want to do is extend that out quite a bit. And I want to try to, this might be difficult to see a little bit. Rotate that until right about there. Yeah, right about there. Okay, so I'll move this over. And again, this is not going to work out entirely right off the bat, just because of the nature of the bulb. So I'm going to break off the little end piece of it there, and the rest I should be able to stitch back together. And stitch back together. That's all good. And now the bulb I should be able to stitch up. There we go. And now if I select the rest of this and that guy and relax it, it should be fine. There we go. Okay, so that's all set. You see a lot more even, and this is probably going to be mostly a solid color, but we just wanted to make sure that that's working properly the way it should be. All right, so let's select this rear section here. And this will probably be its own material, and then we'll switch to another one when we get to here. So the easiest way to do this is a straight flat part. We could have done a cylindrical unwrap, but then it curves the metal shape. And this helps us to create more of a straight metal impression. So that's good. And now we're left with these pieces. So I'm going to select all of that, and I'm going to unselect that. Oops, my selection tools are going crazy. Okay, so I just want this, this rear section here, all the way up to there. Now this is going to have to be this is part of a huge piece here. I should actually do most of this as one piece. Most of all that is one. Alright, so I'm going to select all that and just unselect here, and now I've got all that. Now this is the part that's going to have a reverse seam. It's going to go through here as well, but this is going to be mostly one color, so it'll cover it here, but underneath we need it more. So that's what this detail is here for, partially. Okay, let's see the line. Where's the line? Here he comes. There he is. Alright. Move this down. Fix any problems. There's one there. Always seems to be one. At least one. Okay, that's good to go. And then this will be a different one and a different one. And I forget if we have any actual inset. We do have some inset there. So we can't forget about that interior part. And then the bulb itself is done. Yeah, almost there. So let's select faces. I need more. Trying to use all my resources here, clicking even inside the UVs there. Make sure I select everything. See, I missed one. So I can select it there. There we go. There we go. Got all that. Now what would be really nice is to be able to get the UV line up top here. So, because that's a perfect seam. It's completely hidden by the geometry. Naturally, we didn't add it as a side effect. There you go. So unwrap that. Move you over here, sir, and relax. He gets really wide looking, but it's okay. So it looks super, super thin, but if you notice, they're all equally sized now. And that's okay, because that's going to change momentarily. So let's do this and do that. Now I'm going to go back to the unwrap thing that I didn't like earlier. Okay, I'll move you aside. All good there. Now, these interior parts are a little difficult to get to, but I know that basically all I have left is whatever's here. So I can just select that, and I can work with it from there. So if I do a front face masking, and I do this like so, I can always select the interior. Why can I want to drag and select? I can't do that. Okay, whatever. So I'm going to break this off. There we go. And that would be two different, because I want this to be one type of metal. This is hardly ever going to be seen at all unless the bulb is missing from this thing. Then you will see it. So that's why that's important. Okay. So that's complete. Now, because we have a hierarchy here, what I need to do is collapse everything. And then, so watch carefully. We have varying sizes of everything. Thanks, TK Criminal. Thank you very much. So now when we unwrap, pull this back over. I know I keep going back and forth, but it's for a good reason. Select everything and say equidistant size, please. And now, without touching that at all, I'm just going to come look at it. Look, everything's exactly the same size, and it's all perfectly scaled, and we have good edges, and everything's working out nicely. Okay, and there's our end cap there, which doesn't really matter because it's going to be a solid color. If I render, you can see it looks really nice and smooth. Okay, so I'm going to collapse all, and we're going to do one more little trick here. I'm going to say smoothing groups from UV shells. Collapse all, yes. Okay, and now let's apply our gray color back to it. So now you see everything is nicely smoothed out. We have separations where we want the separations to be. Most importantly, this bottom part is all one color because we know that we're going to have a detail there that required it. So now we can start doing our high poly. So let's end isolate there. And we'll do the same thing here. Let's bring our solid color back there. There we are. Okay. So that's all set. So now we're going to do our final UV pack, and then we will do our high poly, and the baking should be really quick and easy. So, saving again. As I mentioned before, well, first let's do the pack of this. I do think I'm going to end up doing a symmetry, and I want that symmetry mirror to go to the center of the world on the YZ, I meant axis. There we go. And I'm going to do a what's called a unique unwrap instead of a mirrored or shared unwrap. So I'm going to collapse all and close that up. So that now, since this has already been unwrapped, technically these shells are on top of each other. So if I pull up the UVs, here they are. So if I select one of these by choosing this and picking a singular face, you see I've selected this back one here, this guy here, because if I move it, see they're on top of one another. So in theory, I should be able to select one whole side of this like this. So I select all the faces that are made up on the left side of this. So there's everything, right? Maybe I over selected or something. And by moving, it did not like that at all. Okay, well, let's try it again. In theory, I can move it all over here. Now I've selected one whole half of it, and we've got the two sides of it. So, but I'm gonna share the UV space. They're all gonna be packed in there together so that we can have unique dirt on both sides and everything. So it's a little crazy, but I think that's a better way to go. It makes for a better model ultimately. Okay. All right. So that's all good. So now we can take this guy and do smoothing groups from UV shells. Done. Collapse all. Yes. All right. So low poly is totally complete now, and now we can do our UV packing and our high poly work. So we need to, this is going to be two separate things. So if we go effect pivot only, first of all, the pivot for the bottom area is going to be on the floor. This model has to remain at this point so that we can, when we import it into Unity, we can make versions that have various as to how it's been rotated. So this has to maintain this pivot. So these have to be technically two separate models, which will be created and painted and then brought into Painter separately, or together rather, but separate objects. And then in Unity, it'll end up being two models that are part of the same object. So it's a little complex, but we can deal with it. It's no big deal. Pardon me a second. Okay. So because it's going to be two separate models to do the UVs and the to do the high poly work, we'll separate them there. But for now, I'm going to select a copy and make a copy for posterity. Okay, and we'll hide that. All right. So what we need to do here is select both of these and say unwrap. So we're going to unwrap them together. And you'll notice now we have all the shells involved in all this. And if I, again, let's look at the textures to make sure. But if I look at the textures, since we've already laid out everything, they should all be equidistantly sized, so everything should be good. I think there's an error with this program. If I attempt to do the normalization of two different objects, it doesn't like me. I just clicked the button and nothing seemed to happen, so yeah. So, okay, they're good, so we don't have to worry about that. But now we do have to pack all of this. So the way we pack things is you can't scale something all by itself. You have to scale things as a group. So first I'm going to move some things out of the way, and I'm going to start just moving things around. So that's the light bulb. So the light bulb thing has to go with it. This is the top part. This is the under part of the top part. This is this part. Just trying to get things moving around. So to figure out what is what. So this is the end cap, and then where's the cap that goes to that? So that's that. This is that's the darkened interior behind the light bulb, so put that there. And this is the inside of that, so that can go with that. Okay, this is this part back here, which will be very effective to our texture, so we want to make sure we keep an eye on that. This is the part that goes in front of that, so I'll put that there. This is the part that goes on the very top, and this is the ring that goes just past this part right there. Okay. So what you do is we're going to start with what is the biggest, most important part of this, which is probably going to be this part here, this guy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move him into position. I'm going to grab everything, And now I'm going to scale everything together down. And as I do that and I move this over, I want to get this guy in here, and essentially I want to make this as big as I can on the texture sheet while still maintaining room for everything else. So I think I'm almost at that size right now, so I'm going to get him really tightly packed up here in the corner. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to attempt to pack everything else around this. So what I need to do is make some subtle changes. I can do some things like this. I can, for this UV shell, I can select this line and say a line based upon that, so that's straight up and down, which I don't know if it did that just now or not. Align, please. Okay. So now I'm just going to start trying to pack things. So this is the bulb. So the bulb needs to be kind of off all by itself, but it is very large, so we need to make sure we have room for that. This guy, I'm going to rotate him around twice and put him underneath. Leave a little bit of room for some texture bleeding. Okay. Now I said that this was related to that, so I really want to keep this near it as much as I can. So I'm going to just bring him in there, if possible. I need some room here, so I've got some square things that I can put away. So I'm going to move this actually for a little bit. Let's bring in this thing, and I'm going to rotate him one time like this so that he fits a bit better on the texture sheet. And I can keep that in mind that I did that. That's okay. You can come down here like this, and we'll move some other things together. So that's the back part. Let's move this part in here. These are sort of related. These are closer to it physically. Now sometimes it's not always possible, but I attempt to do so. Okay, so the bulb here, if I turn the bulb on its side, can I get it to fit in here? Not quite, but maybe if I move things around a little bit. So for example, I'm going to move the bulb as close as I can to the bottom. And if I rearrange these things a little bit, if I move him into the corner, see, he fits better. And then this can fit in there. So now the bulb is in the corner nicely. Okay? So now we need to go to, like, start with the biggest and work the biggest things first. So bring this guy in and say, you're pretty big, you can go there. You're pretty big, probably just go right next to him. Just eat up the space, but try and leave room for smaller things. So for example, yes, I know it's out of date, thank you. This guy can come in here, but this guy's actually a bit bigger. So I'll put him in first. Put him in first, put him in there. Yeah, it's actually not looking too bad. This is the tiny little cap end to the light. So you put him like in the middle of something, and he can fill that little area. Now, these are the big things that are going to take up a lot of space. And these things cannot change size. That's the problem. See, so these just right away just kind of ruin everything, right? But we like what we've got going on, so we'll select everything. No problem. We'll just make it all a little bit smaller. And we'll move it back into the corner because this is all still valid. Still very valid, so we'll move this into the corner. Very, very tightly packed. There we go. And I can start to figure out, if I have these things and they can't change size, how closely can I pack them for one thing? Let's get them pretty close together to start with. These are okay if they do tend to bleed just a little bit because they're likely going to be just solid metal type texture. So that's one thing that will help us. And still, nope. Let's see if we can rotate them. See, they will fit, but then we need to fit all this other stuff in here too. And I don't think we'll be able to do that, but let's see what we can do. If that were to go there, so all of these need to go together in here. So if I get these close together, and obviously at this point these would need to rotate and go down here. And see, I already know I can't do that, because no matter how close I get these in the corner, Oh, it just barely goes under that. That might just barely work. Okay, well that'll fit, but now we've got some bigger ones to fry, right? So just keep working it, just keep working it. So I'm gonna rotate that 90 degrees so it lines up better. Okay. And let's rotate that. And does that fit? No. Nope. We need more room. Or we move that guy out of the way. It's not going to really help because I still have these two and I still have these things. Like, where are these going to fit, you know? So we got to work that out. Now, we could do something pretty clever with these in here, but we would need more room for this. So that's okay. We'll make some more room. Select everything. Scale it down a bit more. And it seems like it's bad that we're scaling it down so much, but really what we're doing is just continuously making room. Because now I can take these, move them all the way to the bottom. We can put more stuff in here. These are squares, so I know that squares are going to work fine on the bottom there. And these can even move, and these can move back into the corner again. So just back up and into the corner. And since they just take up space, I can even try something where I move them over, or eventually we can rotate them not uniformly and try and get them to fit better. But I try to keep a uniform fit for the most part. Okay. So let's keep working this. Keep packing things into the corner here. And again, trying to leave a little space because I know that we're going to have some bleeding of some edges. So let's get, that's just the nature of textures in general. You can't really affect that. These look like they're two separate. You can always tell by coming over here and looking at what's highlighted. That's that, and this is the other side of that. Okay, so that's good. I could tell that these were not lined up, so I knew they were two separate shells, but they are from the same area, so it's probably a good idea that they remain together. And that's too close. So we're gonna have to move those. Something more like this. Or in here is fine. In here is good because these can go here, and then we know that we can probably fit one more set like that in front of that. And we have such one more set. So and as long as nothing is touching, yep, that's good to go. Now we need to fit this crazy shape in here. These guys can collapse up a bit smaller, but really it's these shapes that are going to give us a little bit of a headache because they're just oddly shaped. So they have to work their way in here somewhere. So let me get the two that are similar, and we'll see if we can kind of sister them up a bit. Oh, a little bit higher. And this is something you'll get better at just by doing it a lot. So don't feel too bad if you do it a few times and you say, oh, I just can't get this to work right, and it's driving me crazy. Trust me, it drives me crazy too, trying to get some of these shapes to fit properly. See, that would be pretty interesting. And I could fit something in there, but these would have to go, and they can't go much further up unless I reverse the shape. So getting things to fit sometimes is a miracle of science and ingenuity here. Let's tighten everything up a little bit. There we go. Okay, and this guy, 90 degrees. Fit you right on top. Ish. Ooh, it's gonna be close. There we go. We're getting it. Now these two are the, these are pretty simple. These can just go in here pretty much anywhere. The one I'm worried about is this guy, because he obviously doesn't have a place to fit right now. So we got to look at that and see what is it, how can we figure it out. Okay. He's not super important, so we could shrink him a little bit if we really need to. And I think I might shrink him just a little bit to make him fit in here. So this is a no-no, but here we go. I'm going to shrink him just a little bit to make him fit in here. So he's technically not in scale with everything else now, but shrink him a little bit. He's this tiny edge under here. You're not really going to see him at all. And what's sad is we have all this room in here now for all kinds of things, you know. Well, let's first get all the pieces in before we start talking about how much room we have, because we don't have enough room. Oh my goodness. Isn't that crazy? Okay, so some rearranging time. We have some spaces we can move some things to. So I'm trying to get these things out of the corner here that I crammed them into earlier, because now I can use this vertical space here much easier. So if I move these things around a little bit, now I can take that vertical space, and if I collapse these things together and rotate them, should be able to squeeze these in here. Yep, those will just fit. There we go. So now I should be able to fit everything. Now I've got tons of room because these can go in here nicely. There we go. So we got it all to fit. And if we look at our overall texture sheet, so I'll close that. I'll close that. So now if we look at our overall, everything still looks super even, well laid out, no real problems. We have a couple things that are upside down, but that's okay because it's just a piece of metal. We tried to keep the most prolific detail to be straight up and down. So that worked out really nicely. Okay. So now if we go to each object and collapse it, because it's two objects, remember. Collapse all. There we go. Okay. That's looking really nice. A quick little render there. Yep, looking really nice. Now we just got to do our high poly work, and to be honest, we're kind of running a little late this evening, so I think we're going to call it before we do that, and we'll do that for another stream. But I do think that we made some terrific progress in just one day. So we painted two different lights. We completely rebuilt a third light here, and it's essentially ready to roll. And the neat thing is, because we unwrap these things together, if you look carefully, I take this one light, just the top part, not the legs now. And if I unwrap it, look what happens. There's gaps exactly where the rest of it's at. So this tells me that I can have two separate textures, or one texture ultimately for two different objects, and they can share that texture space. So this will be really cool. It'll work out really nicely for us. And we can even select this here. You'll see if I say save, and let's do a quick export test. So this is this desk lamp 1? Is that what we were working with? I thought we already did that. So we'll call this desk lamp 2. Desk lamp 2. Getting confused between desk lamp and floor lamp. Desk lamp 2. We'll call this test. So we're going to export our texture coordinates, but I have two different objects selected. So I say save, and let's fire up Painter. Oh, Painter's already fired up. Good, we got our dirty light here from before. Let's save this. So let's do a file new, 1024. Select our model. There we go. Work. Desk lamp 2. There we go. Open. Just want to see it in here. There we go. And what's interesting is, we've got everything in here, even though this is technically 2 objects inside of Max. And this would be 2 objects inside of Unity, so that we could have this rotation based upon this axis here. So, okay, well now you convinced me. I kind of want to, but it's going to take a lot of work to work out our high poly here, because we have some details we need to work into this, and I really want to do that fresh for you guys, so that we can have a plan, go forward with that plan, and make sure that we have all the right details there. As you can tell, I'm losing my voice. So let's schedule that for next time, but I do want to take a look at everything we've done here. So if we unhide everything, oh, we did paint that as well. So we did not paint this guy, so we'll do that next time. He's all set and ready to go. We have our model here. We've got multiple saved copies of this. Yeah, I like to save while I'm working by saving, you know, the different variations of it. So we painted this guy and we painted this guy. As you can see here, his ID mask is still applied. So we got those 2 painted, and we completely rebuilt this guy, and he's ready to be painted, and he's better than ever before. He can now rotate, and he'll be able to rotate inside of Unity, so we can have more like this, or somebody has, if you had this and you put it next to a wall, that'd be pretty cool. So I'm going to create an image for you guys, and I'll share it on the site with beautiful lamps. Can I buy one in real life in my room? I think they're based upon real lamps, so probably something similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an image for you guys, and I'll share it on Facebook and on the site of all the work we did get done tonight. And I will post tomorrow or the next day about our plan for the next live stream, where we will finish by painting this guy. We're going to high poly and paint this guy. And then I have some other assets I've been checking with the team that I can show that are not super, you know, story-driven sort of things, that we will do an entirely new object completely from scratch, from concept art all the way through to the final product. It really shouldn't be too bad. I will generate some masks and some Photoshop kind of stencil to use for that, but I won't actually spend any time modeling or anything for that, so that'll be all done together. So thank you everyone for showing up. I really appreciate it. Had a high, for me, a high turnout as far as the number of people watching. Really hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions or anything like that, please just send it my way, let me know. And as I like to say with the pilgrimage, keep practicing, get better, and I'll see you next time.